They say Hollywood knows fear, but what happens when even Hollywood gets scared? Japan did something no one expected. It whispered. It crawled. It haunted its way into the nightmares of the West. These stories weren't just scary, they were unforgettable. Crawling under your skin and never letting go. Tonight, we're diving into the twisted roots of terror that Hollywood couldn't resist stealing a glimpse at. So grab your blanket, turn off the lights, and let's see if you can make it to the end of this list without looking over your shoulder. 1. Ringu, 1998. A cursed videotape spreads death through whispers and static. They say curiosity kills the cat, but in Ringu, it kills anyone who dares to press play. Imagine this. A flickering TV in the dark. A grainy videotape playing strange, disjointed images, a well, a woman's hair, the sound of water dripping somewhere unseen. Then, the phone rings. A voice, cold and distant, whispers, 7 days. That's all you get before death finds you. What made Ringu so terrifying wasn't blood or jump scares. It was the quiet dread that seeped into your bones. Director Hideo Nakata didn't need to scream to make you afraid, he just let silence do the screaming. The movie follows reporter Reiko Asakawa, investigating the mysterious death of her niece, one of several teens found dead. Faces frozen in terror, her search leads her to the cursed tape. And when she watches it, she unknowingly starts her own countdown to death. The curse isn't just a plot device, it feels like a living thing. Breathing through static and shadows. Every phone ring after that feels like a death knell. Every reflection in the TV looks like it might blink. And somewhere, beneath all the layers of logic, the audience starts to believe, maybe curses can live inside machines. Then there's Sadako, the ghost who changed horror forever. She doesn't chase, she doesn't scream, she just emerges. Slowly, deliberately, when she crawls out of the television in that unforgettable final scene. It's not just the characters who freeze, it's you. Watching, realizing that the boundary between screen and reality has just been broken. What's chilling about Ringu is how it lingers after the credits roll. You start thinking about every screen in your house. Every moment of static, every unanswered ring. It's not about death, it's about inevitability. About something ancient, vengeful, and utterly unstoppable that's learned how to use your technology against you. Hollywood tried to capture that same terror in The Ring, 2002. And though it succeeded commercially, the original still feels rawer, colder, more personal. Ringu isn't just a movie, it's an infection of the imagination. It crawls in quietly, sits beside you in the dark, and waits. So, tell me, would you dare to watch the tape, knowing what happens next? Because the phone's about to ring, and this time, it might be for you. 2. Ju-on. The Grudge, 2002. A curse born from rage infects anyone who dares to step inside the wrong house. There's something about certain houses, the kind you pass on a quiet street and just know something's wrong. The windows feel like eyes. The air feels heavier near the door. Ju-on. The Grudge takes that feeling and traps you inside it. Room by room, breath by breath, once you cross the threshold, the curse owns you, and it never lets go. In this story, it's not the living who haunt the dead, but the other way around. The curse is born from an act of pure hatred. A man's jealous rage leads him to murder his wife, Kayako, and their son, Toshio. Their spirits don't move on, they linger, twisted by pain, their fury radiating through the walls of their home like a disease. And anyone who enters that house, even by accident, becomes part of the cycle. It doesn't matter if you believe in ghosts. It doesn't matter if you're innocent. Once you feel the grudge, it follows you, to work, to bed, to the edge of sanity. What makes Ju-on unforgettable isn't just the ghosts themselves, but how they appear. There's no warning, no jump scare soundtracks, just a faint creak of floorboards, a shadow moving behind you, the low, guttural croak of Kayako crawling down the stairs. That sound, half breath, half death, stays in your head long after the movie ends. And Toshio, the pale, wide-eyed boy, stares at you with a gaze so empty it feels like he's seeing through you. Director Takashi Shimizu doesn't tell a linear story, instead, he gives you fragments of terror, glimpses of people doomed by something they can't comprehend. It's like opening a cursed scrapbook. Each page is a new victim. A new whisper of fear. The brilliance lies in the quiet, the slow dread of realizing that no one escapes. That the curse doesn't just kill, it consumes. Hollywood tried to replicate it with The Grudge, 2004. Keeping Shimizu at the helm. But even then, something about the original feels colder, more personal, as if the house itself knows your name. The Japanese version breathes malice. It doesn't shout, it waits. And maybe that's why it works, because Ju-on doesn't rely on monsters jumping from the dark. It reminds you that evil can wait patiently, that hatred never dies, and that sometimes, the most terrifying sound in the world, is silence right before you hear that croak behind you. So, if you ever see a small boy with black eyes staring at you from the corner, don't blink. Don't move, and whatever you do, don't follow the sound upstairs. 3. Dark Water, 2002. A mother and daughter move into a haunted apartment where grief drips from every ceiling. There's a special kind of horror that doesn't scream, it weeps. Dark Water isn't about monsters lurking in the shadows, it's about the quiet ache of loneliness. The steady leak of despair that seeps into your soul, one drop at a time. It begins with a mother, Yoshimi, struggling to rebuild her life and care for her young daughter, Akuko. After a painful divorce, they find a new apartment, small, worn down, with stains on the ceiling and water that never seems to stop dripping. It's not perfect, but it's all they can afford. And then, the dripping starts to whisper. At first, it's just a nuisance, a dark patch spreading across the ceiling. A leak that no one can fix. But slowly, it becomes something else. The building feels alive, pulsing with sorrow. Footsteps echo where no one walks. Tiny handprints appear on the walls. And above them, in the apartment on the top floor, there's something, or someone, waiting to be noticed. Director Hideo Nakata, who also terrified the world with Ringu, trades VHS tapes for leaking pipes and broken dreams. The water here isn't just physical, it's emotional, symbolic, an embodiment of grief and guilt that refuses to be contained. Every drop carries memory, and every reflection hides a face that doesn't belong. But beneath the ghost story lies something even darker, the fear of abandonment. The ghost of a little girl, Matsuko, isn't evil, she's forgotten, lost, drowned in both water and neglect. And Yoshimi, desperate to protect her own daughter, finds herself drawn into the ghost's pain, as if motherhood itself is a curse passed from one soul to another. The apartment becomes a coffin of empathy, two mothers, two daughters, bound by sorrow that transcends death. The haunting isn't about revenge, it's about yearning. The ghost doesn't want to kill, she wants to be loved, remembered, held one last time. And that's what makes Dark Water hit harder than most horror films. It's not just scary. It's heartbreakingly human. When the Hollywood version arrived in 2005, it tried to replicate the chills. But the original remains unmatched in atmosphere. The Japanese version feels heavier, wetter, more suffocating. Every raindrop carrying centuries of sadness. So, next time you hear water dripping in the middle of the night, stop and listen. Maybe it's just a leak. Or maybe it's a lonely spirit, still waiting for someone to remember her name. 4. Pulse. 2001. When ghosts find the internet, loneliness becomes the deadliest virus of all. There's a strange silence that lives inside technology, a hum beneath the noise. A void behind every screen. Pulse, Cairo, 2001, takes that silence and turns it into something unbearable. Something that feeds on the isolation of modern life. It asks a question that feels even more haunting today. What if the digital world isn't connecting us, but consuming us? The story begins with small disturbances, people disappearing without a trace. Strange smudges on walls, computer screens showing ghostly faces for just a moment too long. Young people in Tokyo start receiving messages asking a chilling question. Do you want to see a ghost? And when they say yes, they don't die violently. They just fade, vanish into shadows, leaving behind only an outline of where they once stood. The city, once crowded and noisy, begins to hollow out, swallowed by something invisible, something spreading through the very networks meant to unite them. Director Kiyoshi Kurosawa doesn't rely on blood or cheap scares. His terror creeps in slowly. Through dim rooms and empty corridors. He paints loneliness like a plague, showing a generation so lost in connection that they forget how to truly feel. The ghosts in Pulse aren't monsters, they're echoes of despair, trapped between worlds, trying to escape their own solitude. They don't want to kill, they want company. They want someone to share their eternal emptiness. One of the film's most haunting scenes unfolds when a young woman walks into a dark room where a ghost stands motionless in the corner. It doesn't chase her, it just moves, slowly, awkwardly, like it's remembering how to be human. And as it turns, its face, pale, empty, filled with bottomless sorrow, asks a question you can't unhear. Why are you still here? By the time the film ends, Tokyo is a ghost city. The internet, once a symbol of progress, becomes a gate for the dead. And maybe that's the most terrifying part. Pulse doesn't just scare you, it predicts you. The loneliness it showed in 2001 feels eerily familiar now. In a world where screens glow late into the night and silence grows louder behind every message. Hollywood tried to capture it in the 2006 remake. But the subtle dread of Kurosawa's version couldn't be replicated. The original isn't just a horror film, it's a warning whispered through static. So before you open that next tab, before you scroll one more time, ask yourself, what if someone on the other side isn't alive? 5. One missed call. 2003. A cursed phone call predicts your death, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. We've all ignored a call we didn't recognize. But what if that missed call wasn't from a telemarketer or a wrong number? What if it was from yourself? One missed call. Chakushin Ari. 2003. Takes one of the most ordinary sounds in daily life, a phone ringing, and twists it into a death sentence. The moment that ringtone plays, the clock starts ticking. It begins innocently enough. A group of friends. Laughter. Late night chats. Then one of them receives a voicemail, from her own number. Dated 2 days in the future. She listens. It's her voice. Panicked. Screaming, and then silence. Exactly 2 days later, she dies at the exact moment the message predicted. Her friends try to shrug it off. But the calls keep coming. Each new victim hears their own death before it happens. The phone becomes an omen. And every vibration feels like a heartbeat counting down. Director Takashi Miike, known for pushing the limits of fear, doesn't rely on shock or gore here. He crafts a creeping sense of dread that grows with every unanswered ring. What makes One Missed Call so disturbing is how it plays with the idea of technology as something intimate. Trusted. Our phones hold our secrets, our memories, our voices, and here, they turn against us. The line between the living and the dead blurs through a signal. A ringtone, a simple connection. But beneath the horror lies something tragically human: neglect, abuse, and the echoes of pain passed down through generations. The curse isn't random. It's born from the anguish of a child whose cries went unheard. Her spirit doesn't just haunt, she calls out, demanding to be acknowledged. Each death is a message no one wanted to receive, a reminder that ignoring suffering doesn't make it disappear. The film's tone is thick with loneliness. That distinctly Japanese kind of melancholy where technology becomes a mirror for isolation. The deaths aren't explosive, they're quiet, eerie, inevitable, and by the time you realize the truth behind the curse, it's already too late. You can't block the number. You can't hang up. Hollywood tried to mimic that eerie chill in the 2008 remake. But the original had something rawer, a sadness that seeps through the horror. Miike's version doesn't just ask what if you knew when you die, it asks what you do with that knowledge. And what it means when even your own voice turns against you. So go ahead, check your phone. See any missed calls? Because if you hear that ringtone next, it's already too late. 6. Shutter. 2004. A photographer discovers something sinister lurking in his photos, a ghost that refuses to be unseen. What if every photo you took captured more than just the moment? What if it captured what's hiding behind you? Shutter. 2004 begins with a flash, bright, ordinary, innocent, and ends with a darkness that sticks to your skin. It's the kind of story that makes you hesitate before taking another picture. The kind that whispers, something might be staring back at you through the lens. Tun, a young photographer, and his girlfriend Jane are driving home one night when they accidentally hit a woman crossing the road. Panic takes over. Instead of helping, Ton convinces Jane to flee. But guilt has a way of following you, and in their case, it follows through the camera. Strange shadows begin appearing in Ton's photographs. Shapes that shouldn't exist, faces half-formed, a pale figure lingering where no one was standing. At first, Ton dismisses it, lens flare, lighting, technical errors. But soon, the weight becomes literal. His neck starts to ache. His shoulders feel heavy, as if something invisible is clinging to him. When Jane develops more photos, the truth begins to emerge. The ghost of Natra, a woman Ton once loved and betrayed, has returned. She isn't seeking revenge for the accident, but for what he did to her long before. What makes Shudder unforgettable isn't the ghost itself, it's the guilt that gives her form. Every image becomes a confession. Every photograph a grave marker of secrets buried too deep. The haunting isn't about fear of death, but of truth, the unbearable kind that crawls out of your own conscience. The horror builds not in loud screams but in quiet moments, a camera flash revealing something just over your shoulder. The faint sound of breathing in an empty darkroom. The unbearable pressure of being watched by something you wronged. And that final scene, when Jane discovers the photos showing Natra perched on Ton's shoulders. The weight that's been haunting him all along, it's one of the most chilling reveals in horror cinema. When Hollywood remade Shudder in 2008, it had the scares but not the soul. The original Thai-Japanese collaboration carried a sadness, a heavy melancholy that lingered like the ghost itself. Because Shudder isn't just about seeing spirits, it's about what happens when your sins refuse to stay hidden. So next time you hear a camera click in an empty room, don't turn around too quickly. Some images aren't meant to be seen. Some memories never stop developing. 7. Apartment 1303, 2007. A young woman's dream home becomes a trap where the walls remember every scream. They say every apartment has a story, but some stories refuse to end. Apartment 1303, 2007, takes that simple truth and twists it into a haunting you can't escape. No matter how many times you move, imagine stepping into a new place, fresh paint, ocean view, the promise of independence, only to realize that something in the walls is watching, waiting, and whispering for you to join it. The story follows Sayaka, a young woman thrilled to finally have a place of her own. But the celebration doesn't last long. Neighbors whisper about the previous tenant, another girl who jumped from the balcony. Her death ruled as suicide. Soon after moving in, Sayaka begins hearing strange noises, footsteps on the ceiling, sobs from empty rooms, whispers echoing through the vents. At first, she thinks it's her imagination, or maybe just loneliness. But loneliness doesn't grab your wrist in the dark. Loneliness doesn't pull your hair when you sleep. What makes apartment 1303 so deeply unsettling isn't just the ghost, it's the building itself. Everything feels off. The peeling wallpaper, the flickering lights, the way the air grows cold near the window. The apartment breathes like a living thing, feeding on the fear of the people who move in. And behind it all lurks the spirit of a mother and daughter, bound in a cycle of abuse and vengeance that stains the walls and poisons anyone who dares to live there. Director Ataru Oikawa builds dread the old-fashioned way, through atmosphere, silence, and suggestion. There are no cheap thrills here. Instead, you feel the tension growing like mold. Slow and suffocating, each scene feels heavy, damp, claustrophobic. The horror doesn't come from what you see, but from what you sense. The ghost doesn't chase, she waits. And somehow, that's so much worse. The film also carries a sadness that lingers long after the credits roll. The haunting isn't about random cruelty, it's about pain passed down, generation after generation. The mother's anger, the daughter's despair, they both linger in that apartment, repeating the same tragedy for anyone foolish enough to take the keys. Hollywood remade it in 2012 as Apartment 1303 3D. But stripped of its quiet sorrow, the story lost its soul. The original remains a melancholy ghost tale wrapped in domestic horror, a reminder that sometimes the scariest thing isn't what's inside the house, it's the house itself. So before you sign that new lease, take a second look around. If the rent seems too good to be true, Maybe it's not a bargain. Maybe it's a warning. 8. The Eye, 2002, after receiving a corneal transplant. A blind woman begins to see things that shouldn't exist, and some of them are looking right back at her. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to see for the first time, to witness the world in all its color, light, and motion? For Moon, the protagonist of The Eye, 2002, that miracle quickly turns into a curse. What begins as a story of hope soon spirals into a chilling descent where every shadow seems alive, and every reflection hides something waiting to be seen. When Moon opens her eyes after surgery, she expects to see faces, streets, and sunlight, but instead, she begins to notice flickers, ghostly figures standing beside the living, following them, whispering silently into the air. At first, she believes these are hallucinations caused by her new eyes adjusting. But how do you explain seeing people no one else can see? Or the faint, icy breath lingering in a room long after its occupant is gone? The truth, as she learns, is far darker than any medical explanation. The eyes she received once belonged to a woman who could see the dead, a gift or a curse that now passes to Moon. Every day becomes a tightrope walk between the living and the lost, as she's drawn into their unfinished stories. A child standing alone in a classroom, a faceless man in an elevator, a woman in white staring at her reflection, unmoving. Each vision is a cry for help or a warning. There's a quiet beauty in the eye that makes its horror even more haunting. The Pang brothers craft a world where fear doesn't scream, it lingers. The film plays with silence, distance, and light, letting dread bloom slowly until you realize you've been holding your breath. The ghosts aren't monsters, they're echoes, fragments of sorrow that bleed into the world of the living. And through Moon's terror, we glimpse something heartbreakingly human, the fear of seeing too much, of knowing what others can't bear to face. What makes this film unforgettable isn't just its scares, but its empathy. Beneath the horror lies a meditation on perception, fate, and the weight of other people's pain. Moon's journey isn't only about surviving the haunting, it's about understanding it. And in doing so, freeing herself from the eyes that see beyond life. Hollywood's remake tried to replicate its chills, but missed its soul. The original The Eye remains a masterpiece of emotional horror, quiet, tragic, and luminous in its darkness. Because sometimes, the gift of sight isn't meant for the living. And when you finally open your eyes, you might wish you hadn't. 9. Chaos, 2000. A kidnapping goes wrong, unraveling into a chilling web of lies, betrayal, and illusion where nothing is what it seems. Have you ever had that strange feeling that someone is playing a game with you, that every word, every glance, every silence might be part of a bigger trap? Chaos, 2000, thrives on that exact tension. It's not a ghost story in the traditional sense, but it's haunted all the same by guilt, manipulation, and the dark corners of the human mind. The film begins with a seemingly simple crime. A wealthy businessman's wife is kidnapped, and the culprits demand ransom. The husband, frantic and desperate, complies. But when the police get involved, everything starts to unravel. The kidnapper claims the woman was already dead. The wife, however, reappears, alive, and the man behind the crime insists he's being framed. So, who's lying? Who's in control? And what if the person pulling the strings isn't even visible anymore? Director Hideo Nakata, known for Ringu, trades vengeful spirits for psychological ones in chaos. Yet the sense of dread is just as suffocating. Every scene hums with unease, dimly lit rooms, faces half hidden in shadow, conversations that twist into something sinister. The horror here doesn't rely on jump scares, it seeps into you through uncertainty. You start doubting every word spoken, every expression caught by the camera. The film plays like a labyrinth, each turn revealing another version of the truth. The kidnapped woman might not be a victim at all. The kidnapper may not be the villain. The husband's grief might mask something colder, something rehearsed. The deeper you go, the more the story fractures, until reality itself feels like a performance. There's a moment, quiet, almost tender, when one character asks, "Do you believe in coincidences?" And that's when you realize there are none. Everything in Chaos is deliberate, every movement calculated, every emotion weaponized. It's a story about control, Who holds it? Who loses it? And how far people will go to keep it? Unlike many horror films on this list, chaos doesn't need ghosts to haunt you. It reminds you that the most terrifying monsters are often the ones that look just like us. People who can smile while lying. Who can love while betraying. Who can kill while whispering. Trust me. By the time the credits roll, you're left with the uncomfortable feeling that you've been tricked too. That the chaos wasn't just on screen, but in your own mind. And maybe that's the point. Because chaos doesn't just tell a story, it pulls you into one. And when it's over, you can't quite tell if you ever found your way out. 10. The Ring Virus, 1999. A cursed videotape brings death to anyone who watches it. And a desperate journalist races against time to uncover its terrifying origin. If you thought Ringu was the end of Sadako's haunting, think again. The Ring Virus, 1999, takes that same cursed tape and twists it through a different cultural lens, this time South Korean, yet the dread feels eerily familiar. Like déjà vu from a nightmare you never fully woke up from. It's a remake, yes, but not just a copy. It's a retelling that stares at fear from a different angle, peeling back the layers of what makes the curse so deeply human. The story follows Sun-ju, a journalist whose curiosity becomes her curse. When her niece dies suddenly, her face frozen in pure terror, Sun-ju stumbles upon a strange videotape rumored to kill anyone who watches it within 7 days. You know how it goes. You watch. The phone rings, and a whisper seals your fate. But the Ring Virus slows things down, letting the fear breathe. It's not about the jump scare. It's about the creeping realization that something ancient and unseen is watching you back. Unlike the cold, misty tone of Ringu, this version burns with a strange melancholy. The landscapes feel lonelier, the silences heavier. You can almost hear the ghost of Sadako, here named Park Eun-soo, weeping through the static. And what's most unsettling isn't her vengeance, but her pain. She's not just a monster. She's a memory that refuses to fade. A scream trapped inside the reel, begging to be heard. The film plays a delicate game with the viewer. Every flicker on the screen, every grain of distortion, feels like it could be hiding something, or someone. You find yourself staring too long, afraid you'll miss the moment when reality cracks open. The cursed tape isn't just a horror prop here, it's a metaphor for trauma, how it spreads, how it consumes, how it lives on even when we try to bury it. There's a haunting scene where Sun-ju rewatches the tape under flickering light. Desperate for a clue, each frame reveals fragments, a well, a face, a desperate struggle, and you can feel her fear mixing with empathy. That's when the Ring Virus becomes more than a ghost story. It's a tragic loop of suffering passed down through generations, like an emotional infection no one can cure. And when the phone rings at the end, that familiar, icy chill runs down your spine again. But this time, it's different. It's not just dread, it's sorrow. Because you realize the real curse isn't the videotape. It's the inability to let go of pain. To stop watching. To stop remembering. The Ring Virus doesn't scream to scare you, it whispers. It lingers in the quiet, long after the screen fades to black. And if you listen closely, maybe you'll still hear it, the faint buzz of the TV. The echo of a girl calling from the bottom of the well. Asking one last question before she pulls you under. Did you watch it? And there you have it. 10 nightmares born in Japan that crept their way into Hollywood and refused to die. Each story whispered something ancient, something cold, something that still lingers when the lights go out. Maybe that's why we keep watching. We crave the fear that feels too real. So tell me, which of these cursed tales still haunts your mind? Drop it in the comments, if you dare. And hey, before the curse finds you, hit that like button, share this with your fellow horror lovers, and subscribe for more shadows that follow you home.